I think one of the hardest parts is like, it's hard to Google, like you can't Google, how do I fill text with like a pretty image? It's like, how do I use a clipping mask? So it can be hard to find what exactly you're looking for.
Yes, you have to know all the right terminology and all that stuff. Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter, and if you're anything like me, then you're probably a little bit overwhelmed by using Procreate on your iPad for lettering. I have had an iPad for like 2 years now, and I still don't know all of the different things I can do with it with Procreate. And so today I invited Jillian and Jordan from the Loveleigh Loops, who have been on the show before, but not for this topic, to come on and talk a little bit about their course, Procreate Lettering Projects, and give us a little mini lesson on all the different things that Procreate can do and make it way less overwhelming for us. So let's jump right in. Guys, welcome to the show. Actually, I should say welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been almost over a year now that we've been on here.
It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, honestly. It feels like we just did that other lesson.
I know. Time flies.
Crazy. So I say welcome back, but I'm sure there are people watching this who haven't seen the other lesson that we did, and they can go back and watch that one later. I'll link to it. But for those people, can you explain to us who you are, what you do, why you guys look the exact same and are wearing opposite t-shirts?
Yeah, so our outfit choice was totally on accident. We are twin sisters, and this happens a lot. It would happen all the time in high school. We would wear the same thing, and one of us would have to change.
But my name is Jordan.
And I'm Jillian, and we are
the faces behind Loveleigh Loops. So we have been doing calligraphy for a couple of years. We do brush calligraphy and point and pen calligraphy, and then we've also in the past couple of years been loving digital lettering on the iPad.
Mm-hmm. So iPad lettering and iPad calligraphy has become really popular lately, and that's actually the reason we got iPads in 2017, was to learn how to use the Procreate app, and we've been figuring it out since. So that's like our latest obsession is iPad lettering.
And I'm so glad that you guys are teaching that stuff, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who like really sucks at the digital stuff. Like, it's nice to have somebody who can like break it down for me.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming, especially if you're new to the app, and also if you've never used a digital program like that before. So yeah, it took us a lot of time figuring things out, reading through the manual, kind of teaching each other. A lot of things we figured out on accident.
I know. I think one of the hardest parts is like, it's hard to Google, like you can't Google, how do I fill text with like a pretty image? It's like, how do I use a clipping mask? So it can be hard to find what exactly you're looking for.
Yes, you have to know all the right terminology and all that stuff. So speaking of being overwhelmed by the iPad and Procreate, I know you guys are going to teach us a little lesson on the basics of all of that stuff. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your course, because you have a full course on all of this stuff, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? And then obviously we're going to do a free lesson for people that they can just watch. But if they want to know more about actually getting deep into it, tell us about that.
Yeah, so we created a course. It's called Procreate Lettering Projects, and the reason it's called that is because it's project-based. So we find that it's easier to teach and learn concepts when they're in context rather than just learning about things separately. Although we do go over all of the basics of how to use the tools, the main bulk of the course is creating these amazing projects that show you all sorts of awesome effects that you can create with your lettering and all of the capabilities of the Procreate app.
Yeah, so it starts by teaching you the features and the tools, going in depth in each one, but then applying them so that you remember how to use them, and also teaches you kind of like different ways of doing similar effects to show you more efficient ways of doing things, and also really explaining the why behind why we do things certain ways, so that it speeds up your workflow, and so it makes it so you can make edits if you decide to go back. And at the end of the course, you'll have 16 awesome lettering projects plus some fun bonuses.
Yeah, we recently added a bonus on how to make animations. So there's just so much you can do with the Procreate app, and it really doesn't have to take 2 years to figure out how to do it if you kind of know what you're doing and can follow a step-by-step process.
Okay, I have two things to say right now. The first one is that I think it's really smart that you're doing it with projects, because it's true. Like, you could watch tutorials on how to use the iPad and use the features, but if you're not actually applying them to something, it's completely useless and it goes in one ear and out the other. And I can attest to that. But the other thing is just that I think it's insane how much you two like finish each other's sentences, and that was like one seamless sentence that was spoken by one person, but there's two of you. It's crazy to me.
It makes it easy when I lose my train of thought because she can just pick right back up where I was.
I'm also not paying attention when you're talking.
So good. Okay, so I will link to your course so people can go and check it out, but I think we should just jump right into the lesson because I'm sure that people want to get to know the basics of Procreate and see how they work in these projects and stuff. So I'll take my face off here and let you guys go for it.
All right, we're going to start with the basics before we get into the projects, just so that you know where to find everything. So we're using an iPad Pro, and the Procreate website has an FAQ page that tells you which devices are compatible, just in case you're not sure if yours will work. And we're also going to be using this Apple Pencil, and this is definitely the best stylus to use with the iPad. First things first, you're going to need to download the Procreate app. If you search Procreate on the App Store, this is what it will look like. This is the logo. And please note there is another app, it's called Procreate Pocket. This version is for mobile devices, like if you have an iPhone, you can use Procreate Pocket, but make sure you get the one that says Procreate. The logo has a black background for the iPad. So once you download that, let's see what it looks like when we open it. So when you open the app, you'll have your gallery view. Now yours is going to look a little bit different because these are all projects that we've been working on, so it'll look a little bit different. But the first thing we're going to do is create a new canvas. So if you look in the top right corner, there's a plus sign. Let's tap on the plus sign. And you can choose all these different options of sizes. You can create your own size. For now, let's just choose screen size. Okay, and that will automatically open up a new canvas that is the size of the screen. So to zoom in and zoom out, it's just like any touchscreen device. Pinch your finger out and in, and anything that's on this white background is on your canvas. Everything else around it is off of the canvas. So I'm going to go over some of these menu items across the top toolbar. And let's start over here in the top right. So the first icon right here is a brush, and the next is smudging, then eraser, then layers and color, and I'll go into each of these individually. So let's start with brush. If you tap on the brush, here is your brush library. Now the app already comes with all of these awesome brushes. You can actually create your own, and you can buy brushes that other people have made, but I would recommend looking through and seeing all the cool options that are already here. So I'm just gonna choose one. Let's choose this one. Okay, so there's different categories. I'm in the calligraphy section. Actually, let's go to a different one. Let's go to painting, and I'm gonna choose dry brush. And if you tap on the brush name after it's already selected, it opens the menu that you just saw, but to change the brush, you just tap on the different brushes. So let's go back to this one, and then to get back to the canvas, you can either tap on the canvas or tap on the brush icon to make this go away. I'll just tap on the canvas. So now I have that brush selected, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm drawing with the stylus, and I'm painting on the canvas. Now I want to talk about these sliders over here on the left. So the top one, if I slide this up, it's going to increase the size and make it a lot bigger. If I slide it down, it's going to make it a lot smaller. I'm going to choose a different brush. Let's go to airbrushing, and I'll do soft brush. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what happens if you turn this down. This is the opacity slider, so I'm going to turn it way down, and now you can see that it's lighter. If I turn it up, back towards the top, it gets darker. But something else that's happening, also just to show you the size, smaller, bigger. So something else that's happening is I am able to press harder to create different effects. So right now I want to clear my canvas. So to clear the canvas, there's a few different ways of doing it. You can either take the eraser and erase everything. So let me just show you what that looks like. If I take my eraser and start erasing, you can see it's getting rid of everything I've painted here. I can make the size bigger, but this is going to take kind of a long time. So I'm going to clear the canvas by going into the layers menu,
tapping on the layer and doing clear. Alright, that might have been confusing. I will talk about the eraser and the layers again in a second. But I want to talk about pressure sensitivity. So this Apple Pencil stylus is pressure sensitive, which means that for some of these brushes, you can get different effects by pressing harder. So let's go back to the calligraphy section, and I'm going to choose this one called Blotchy. I'm going to decrease the size a little just so it's not so huge, and then I'm going to draw with it. And right now I'm not pressing very hard, and the harder I press, it's getting bigger and darker the harder I press. So it's kind of changing these two things, the size and the opacity, as I'm pressing down harder. Okay, so that's built into this brush, and those are some things that makes this really cool to use, is that you can get cool effects like this that almost mimic real life. Okay, I want to undo that. So the trick to undo is if you take 2 fingers and tap on the screen, it will step back and undo what you just did. To redo, you take 3 fingers and tap on the screen and it will bring that back. You can also use these little arrows down here to undo. So I'm just gonna undo all that and start over. So let's go to the color wheel. So the color wheel is pretty fun. If you tap on this circle up here, it's black right now because that's the color that I have selected. It will bring up your color wheel. So the default view is this disc, and to change the color, you will go around the disc. So let's say I want to choose a blue color right here. So I have blue selected, but it's still showing up as black. So the reason for that, I'm going to double tap to undo, or 2-finger tap to undo, is because the middle part is called the saturation disc, and right now the little dot right here you can see is on black, so you need to drag that over to whatever blue color you want. Let's go over here. To get out of the color menu, just tap on the canvas, and then now we're drawing with blue. If you want to change to another color, you just can tap around the wheel. Let's choose a purple color. You can change it inside here also. Get back to the canvas and draw with some purple. So this brush, because it's transparent, you can see that the colors overlapping kind of blend together. That doesn't happen with every brush, just if it has that characteristic. Okay, I want to show you the smudging tool, which is next to the brush. If we take the smudging tool and go like this between 2 colors, you can see that it blends them together. Now let's go back to the eraser. So if I tap on the eraser, I have the eraser chosen, and it's just going to get rid of what I've drawn. I'm going to double tap to undo that. But if I tap on the eraser, it brings up the same exact brush library that we saw for the brush. So if I go to, let's say, painting and go back to the dry brush, now I'm erasing, but I'm erasing with that dry brush texture. Okay, so I showed you brush, smudging, and eraser. Let's go back to the color wheel. By tapping on the color, you can see it's purple now because that's the color I have selected. So if I go back to the brush, I'm drawing with purple. If I want to save this purple color to use for later, you can create a palette. And there are some palettes. If you go over here to palettes, you might have some already showing up. To create a new one, you would just tap the plus sign up here, and it will create a new palette all the way at the top. I'm going to go back to disc. Okay, so down here under the color wheel, I have purple selected. I want to save this color, so I'm going to tap in the palette and it saves it. Let's say I want to save a blue color, go over to the blue, tap on the palette, and it saves it. And let's do a pink also. Let's say that I want to save a color that I already used. So I was already using this blue color, and it might be different than the one that I just came up with. So to use the color, then you, instead of going on this wheel, you just tap it. So let's select blue. I'm going to draw with it, and it's a little different than the color I had selected before. So a trick for picking up the same color that you've already used is by tapping and holding on the screen. So tap and hold, and then move your finger around to whatever color you want to select. So I want to select this lighter blue, and you can see the color in the top right automatically changed. So now I have this lighter blue selected, and if I want to add that to the palette, I can do it.
All right, let's talk about layers. So next to the color wheel, you see these two squares right here. I'm going to tap on that and it brings up the layer menu. So you can think of layers as kind of like pieces of paper stacked on top of each other, but think about it more like pieces of tracing paper or pieces of glass, because it's not actually a white background. It'll be transparent, and the only thing on the layer is whatever you've painted on it. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to add a new layer on top of layer 1 by pressing the plus sign. It automatically names it layer 2, and then to get out of the layers menu, I'll just tap back on the canvas. Now I'm going to go back to my color wheel and choose pink, and I'll just use the brush that I'm currently using and just draw some pink on top of it. Okay, so the benefit of using layers is that you can keep things separate to easily edit them. So right now, if I wanted to erase part of what I just did, I can go to my eraser, and right now I'm only erasing the pink. I'm not erasing anything below it because pink is on a separate layer. I'm going to 2-finger tap to undo that to bring that back. If I go back to layer 1, so to change the layer that you're currently working on, it's whatever is highlighted in blue. So if I want to go back to layer 1, I would open the layers, tap on layer 1, and now I still have the eraser selected. I'm erasing in the same exact area, but now I'm erasing what was under the pink. Okay, I'm going to 2-finger tap to bring that back. You can also change the order of the layers, which is really neat. So going back to the layers menu, if I tap and hold on layer 1, right now it's underneath layer 2. I'm going to add some more pink on top so it's easier to see. Actually, I'm going to choose a different brush. Let's choose this one. Something that's not transparent so that we can see this effect easier. So right now this pink is blocking everything below it. But if I go to the layers and I move layer 1 on top of layer 2 by tapping and holding until it looks like this and then dragging it above, you can see what just happened. So now the pink is under the other colors. Okay, so that's a benefit of using layers. We will talk about these tools in the top left, but just to show you really quick, if I tap on this arrow, it selects everything on that layer and I can move it around. So now I'm just moving around this pink blob. Okay, and to get out of that, I'm going to tap the arrow again. Okay, so now that you have learned the basics of some of these tools, we're going to apply them to lettering, and I'm going to pass it back to Jillian. She's going to show you how to create the lettering project. Okay, so we're going to create a new project here. So in order to get back to create a brand new project, because I want it to be a square instead of a rectangle like this, and I just want a fresh copy, I'm going to hit this gallery in the top left, and then top right up here, choose the plus button, and then I'm going to choose square. So the first thing we're going to do is turn on some guidelines. So if you've ever done lettering before, you've probably found that it's a lot easier to letter when you have some straight lines to work with instead of just trying to freehand it, because I usually go like uphill or it just gets really uneven. So there's several different ways of creating guidelines in Procreate, but the easiest way is to use some grids that are already built in. So let's hit the wrench icon and then go to Canvas. And then once you're in Canvas, turn on this drawing guide and you'll see that this grid comes up. Now you can use it as is, or you can edit the size and color. So I'm going to go back to the wrench, under Canvas, choose Edit Drawing Guide, and then this top part right here, you can slide it back and forth to change the color of the grid that shows up. So maybe if you have a black background, you want to do white. I'm just going to keep it at black over here. And then you can also change the size of it if you want it bigger or smaller. I'm going to increase mine to about 200. You can tap in here and type in here if you want an exact amount. Oops, backspace. So if I wanted 200, I could type that in and then I'm done. So let's hit done to get back to the canvas. Now, even though these grid lines are showing up right now, they're not going to show up if you export the piece, and we can easily get rid of them by turning them off later. All right, now we're going to choose a brush. So go to the brush menu that Jordan showed you, and under calligraphy, we're going to find brush pen. So brush pen, Now I usually, when I first select a brush, I like to draw a few strokes to see if it's about the size that I want. So if it was like way too big like this, and I'm gonna do 2 fingers to undo that, then I would adjust the size down here. So I'm gonna make mine, let's see, 20% is a little bit big, maybe 10% looks about good for the size of grids that I'm using and for the amount of pressure that I'm using. And then I always just like to tilt my paper a little bit in real life, so I'm just going to tilt my canvas too. Okay, for this part we don't need to worry about what color you're using, so you can use any color for this because I will be showing you how to change the color. So let's write, I'm going to write the quote, "Don't worry, be happy." So as I go down, for my down strokes, I'm going to press the pen harder because pressing harder makes thick strokes and pressing lighter makes thin strokes if you're using an Apple Pencil with this calligraphy brush. So as I go down, I'm pressing hard, and as I come back up, I'm lessening the pressure. And I do recommend lettering pretty slowly. I'm going to go a little bit quicker than I normally would go just for the purpose of this video. But going slowly is going to really help you. Okay, so right now I want to write the word worry, but I feel like I'm about to run out of room. So I can actually shift all of this over by tapping that arrow at the top and then sliding it to the left. If I have magnetic selected, it's going to go exactly to the left. You can see that blue bar appear. That means it's snapping to a horizontal move. If I had that off, then I could move it any which way and it wouldn't go exactly along the guidelines. So let's do that. And then I just tap my brush to go back to my brush, and then I can write my next word, which is worry. So as I go, again, I'm pressing harder on the downstrokes and lighter on the upstrokes. And then next I want to write be happy, so I'm just going to shift this up. So if you want, you can zoom in really close and letter like at this scale, or if you zoom back, kind of whatever you prefer. And I like to move around my paper a lot as I write, so I do the same thing with Procreate lettering. So I just take 2 fingers and move it to the left. Okay, now I should have known that I should have left more space, or that I should have started this further over to the left. Now, instead of selecting the entire thing and moving it over, if I did that to move B where I wanted it to go, then I would lose the first part of don't. So I'm going to undo that, grab this selection tool up here, and then I have freehand selected. I'm actually going to choose rectangle. Then I can draw a rectangle around where I want to move, grab that arrow, and move it to the left. So just some tips as we go of things that I use a lot. All right, so the rest of our quote here, be happy. All right. So one of the things about digital lettering that you're probably seeing me do a lot is tapping the undo, like undoing a lot, and that can be good and bad. If you're a perfectionist, then sometimes it's kind of hard to let some of the small things go. Like if you want it to be perfect, it's really easy to undo, versus in real life, after you've drawn something, it's kind of hard to erase ink. So don't get too caught up in perfection here. All right, so now I have my don't worry, be happy done. I'm going to, I think I want a little less space between be and happy, so just gonna select that. Now to move things, once you have your selection selected, you can either grab, like take your pencil on the thing you want to move and move it like this, undo. You can go outside of it and move it, undo. If you want to just move it a tiny bit, like nudge it to the right a little, you can just tap, and every time you tap, it's going to move it a tiny bit in that direction. So right now it's moving it a tiny bit to the right, and this would move it a tiny bit up. And then to deselect, I'm going to hit the arrow. All right, now that we have our lettering done, we don't really need these guidelines anymore, so I'm going to turn them off. So let's go to the wrench, and I'm still on canvas, and then I can toggle that off. So now those go away, and I still have my lettering here. All right, the first thing I want to do is just scale this down a little bit so the lettering doesn't go all the way to the edge here. So I'm going to tap my arrow, and then with magnetic on, there's two ways you can resize. You can either take this corner node and drag it down or up, or you can just take two fingers and pinch, and you can do this anywhere on the canvas to resize it. So I'm just gonna go like right about here and move it down a little. Now, if you need to be able to see your entire canvas, like right now I can't really tell if this is centered or not, if you tap and hold on the arrow and then move your canvas like this, now I can see the whole canvas. And then we can move that down, so now it is centered. Okay, I want to create a backup copy of this layer. So the reason I want to do that is because right now I'm going to recolor it and I just want to have an extra copy of it. So to create a copy of the layer, open up your layer menu and then swipe this to the left, choose duplicate, and now I have two copies. It doesn't look like anything happened here, but if I move one around, you can see that now there are two. So undo that. Okay, and then I'm actually going to hit that checkbox to hide the one below. So for mini project number 1, I'm going to show you how you can recolor the letters in here to make different color lettering. So the key to this is using alpha lock. So with my layer selected, the one that I want to work with, I'm going to tap the layer, and then this menu will come up. I'm going to choose alpha lock. Let's go to our color menu, and Jordan created this palette before, so I'm just going to let's grab this lighter blue. Now I'm going to, with the same brush I had before, I'm going to draw on my canvas with that blue, and right now you can see nothing's happening, but as soon as I go over where my letters are, you can see that the blue is appearing. So alpha lock makes it so that you can only draw on the pixels that are already there. So if you wanted this entire thing to be blue, the slow way to do it would just be to color over all of it. A really quick way to do it would be fill layer. So open up your layers, tap the layer and choose fill layer, and now it all turns blue. So that's a good way to recolor your layer if you want the whole thing to be a different color. But if you want to create some sort of ombre or gradient effect, what you could do is choose multiple colors here. So I'm going to switch my brush to an airbrush just so that I can get a bigger brush here. So let's go to my brush library and then find airbrushing, and soft brush is fine. And I'm going to increase the size over here on the left to about 40%. So I want my words to go from blue to pink in a nice little gradient blend. So I have my blue already on the letters. Now I'm going to choose pink, and with my airbrush, I'm going to start from the right, and I have an outline around the brush so I can see how big it is with that circle. The way you turn that on is going to your preferences, and then choosing brush cursor to turn that on. So just so you know, if yours looks different than mine, then that's why. So I'm just drawing with pink here, and I'm going to cover about half the word, and that's a pretty good blend. Like in the middle here, it's a pretty good blend, but I want it to look even better, so I'm going to choose the color that's sort of in between here, and I'm just going to tap and hold with my finger to select that purplish color. And then if I were to go down the middle, it would change everything to purple because of the size of the brush. So I'm going to decrease the size to, let's say, 14%, and then go over the areas that I want to be purple. So that is our first mini project. So now you can create lettering that has a nice ombre effect. So we are going to export this so that we can share it, and just make sure that everything is how you want it to be. I might even take my arrow and move this to the left just a little bit. Okay, good enough. So go to your wrench icon, go to share, and then there's multiple formats you can export in. I'm just going to choose an image format, so PNG, and then save image. Quick note on that, so right now when I export it, it's going to have this white square around it. If you wanted a transparent background, like if you need it to be transparent for whatever project you're working on, open up your layers and deselect the background color. So now it's going to be let's do that again. Transparent background, so you would need to export it as a PNG file type. Save the image, and then now it'll be on your camera roll or wherever you decide to share it, and the background will be transparent. Okay, so that was project number 1. I'm going to turn my background layer back on, and we can start project number 2. Alright, so for this project, I'm just going to show you how you can take this quote that we've made and rearrange it to create some more interest to the piece. Right now, everything is the same size, and it's just on 2 lines, but we're going to make it a little bit more interesting. So we're going to be using Move and Resize for this. So I'm going to take my selection tool at the top left here, and right now it's on rectangle, so I'm just going to draw a rectangle around Don't Worry. So if I were to go like this, you can see the border around it is going to select the top part of Be and Happy. So if I did that and tap my arrow and move it, now you can see that cuts that apart. So let's undo that. Okay, and I just tap that to deselect it. So select that again. With rectangle selected, I'm going to select this top part of the word, and then I can just go around this bottom part of the Y, and it might be hard to see on screen, but it's just going to select the words Don't Worry. So then I tap my arrow, and let's make this smaller and move it to the top right here. And then I want to take my word Be, so I'm going to select it with my rectangle selection, tap that, move it on top of Happy. Okay, and then I want Be Happy to move over. So let's see, I'm just going to draw some rectangles around my area. You can also use freehand and just draw a border around whatever you want to select. And then I want Be Happy to be bigger as well. All right, let's look at the spacing here. And I'm going to, let's go to freehand. So freehand select all of my Be Happy. Maybe I'll make it even bigger and move it down a little bit. The more I think about it, the more I don't even want the words Don't Worry to be on here at all. So in order to get rid of them from this layer, but if I don't want to completely delete it, I can actually cut it from the layer. So right now, all of this is on the same layer, but if I wanted to keep sort of a copy of the Don't Worry part, I can select it. So let's go to Selection, Freehand, and then tap your arrow to select it. Now this is going to be a shortcut. Take 3 fingers and swipe them down on your screen, and then do cut and paste. So it's going to cut it from the layer we're on and put a new layer with just Don't Worry. So right now it doesn't look like anything happened, but if I go to my layer menu, you can see now Don't Worry is on its own layer and Be Happy is on its own layer. So I'm going to uncheck Don't Worry so that I just have Be Happy, and let me select Be Happy, and then I'm going to just move it up a little bit. Okay, let's move it up a little bit more. All right, now what I want to do for this project, so step 1 was reorganizing the words from how they were before and resizing some things, and then the second part of this mini project is creating a shadow. So in order to create a shadow, I would like a duplicate of this layer. So layer number 1, I'm going to tap it and rename it Be Happy, just so that I know what I'm working with. As you get more and more layers, then it's going to get a little bit easier to keep track of if you name them. So let's swipe that to the left to duplicate it. Then on the layer that's underneath, we're going to rename it Be Happy Shadow. So Be Happy Shadow. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. So if I have that Be Happy Shadow selected, I'm going to tap my arrow and then move this down and to the right a little bit. So that looks a little weird because the color is the same. So what I want to do is color this Be Happy Shadow layer to be black. So let's use our Alpha Lock feature that we learned before. So I'm going to tap the layer and choose Alpha Lock. And you can kind of see, you might be able to see better on your iPad, there's like a little checkered background behind it. So that means that you can only draw on the pixels that are already there. So let's go up to our color menu and change our color to black. So you can drag this center node down to black like that. With black selected, go to your layer menu, tap on the Be Happy Shadow layer, and choose Fill Layer. So now we have a black shadow. Okay. That looks pretty good. I think I want it to be a little bit lighter though, so I can make it more transparent by going to my layer menu. On the Be Happy Shadow layer, tap the N right here and drag the opacity down, and I'm going to make it, let's see, you can make it as dark as you want. I'm going to go about 15% just so that the shadow is a little bit more subtle. And there we go. So that is project number 2. I'm going to export it by going to Actions, Share, PNG, and Save Image. That will save it to my camera roll. Remember, if you want a transparent background, you're going to have to remove that background color. Okay, now we're going to do another little project. So I'm going to create a duplicate of this Be Happy layer by swiping it to the left and choosing Duplicate. And then I'm going to deselect these two. So basically I still have a copy of that Be Happy with the shadow that I just exported, but I want to work on a new project here. So remember when we originally created this gradient effect? Let me bring back the don't worry. We had it going from blue on the left to pink on the right with purple in between. Oops. Okay. But when I moved the word B up to the top, you can see that obviously the blue is now no longer on this side, it's on top. So we kind of lost that gradient effect. So for this project, I'm going to show you how you can keep your gradient effects and you can move your words around or even rewrite your words without affecting how the colors appear. So in order to demonstrate this, first I'm actually going to just change this back to a black color. So let's tap our Be Happy layer, choose Alpha Lock, and then with black selected from our color menu, I'm going to tap the same layer and choose Fill Layer, so now it's black. You can choose any color for this. Now we're going to create a new layer on top. So with Be Happy or whatever layer you want to recolor selected, tap the plus icon to add a new layer. And I'm going to rename this Colors. Okay. So here we're going to go a little bit crazy. We're going to just be drawing some colors on our layer. I'm going to keep it sort of simple, but you can do whatever kind of coloring here that you want. So I'm starting with my blue, and I'm going to use my soft airbrush that I had selected before. And I'm just going to color some areas of this and try to match it to like what it was before. So I had it going from blue to pink with a little bit of purple in between. So because I'm on a new layer here, I'm not actually ruining any of that Be Happy text. If I take the layer off, you can see it's still there. All right, and then in the middle, I want to do some purple like this. And then let's try to blur all of this together so that it's more of a smooth transition. So go to my wrench, go to my wand, adjustments, choose Gaussian blur, and then slide my pencil to the right, and you can see this blurring together. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I can tap my wand to get out of that. Now, once again, I still have my Be Happy underneath. So in order to get this color to fill my letters underneath, we're going to use a clipping mask. So it's pretty simple. All you do is tap your color layer, choose clipping mask, and now you can see the colors are appearing within our Be Happy. So now I can move my Be Happy layer around. So I chose that layer, tap my arrow, and now I can move it around, and you see, like if I move it to the left, it's going to be mostly blue. If I move it to the right, basically the color is staying where it is, but my words can move around. So if we go back to the example of how before we had the word be over on the left, then we're going to keep that gradient of going from blue to pink. I'm just going to undo that because I want it to stay in this orientation. Another cool thing you can do is move the colors around. Let's center this text a little bit better. It's kind of hard because Procreate doesn't have like a center or alignment or distribution feature like some other digital programs. But let's go to our colors layer. So select that, tap the arrow, and you can do cool things like you can move the color around and the words will stay where they are. You can rotate it. So there's this rotate 45 degrees if you want to make the gradient more diagonal or up top to bottom, or even just flip it around, whatever you want to do. So that is kind of neat. I think I want mine to be maybe at an angle like this, and you can change the size of it. Now note that if you move the area of the color off of your words, then it's just going to be whatever color you wrote them with originally. So just make sure that your color area completely covers the letters that you want to be colored. Okay, so once we're happy with how that looks, we are going to add just a couple more fun things here. So let's say I wanted my words to move up, but I like how the color looks. So right now, if I just tap my words and I move it up, then you can see that we're losing some of that blue and we have the black coming back. So we want these to move together now. So one way you can do that is tap the layer that has your words on it, and then whatever your color layer is, swipe it to the right and you'll see now it's blue. Then tap your arrow and move them, and now they can move together, but they're still separate layers. Like you can still edit them independently and do all of the things that I just showed you. Okay. So now, so that kind of like created a temporary group. Okay, now I'm going to show you a fun little a couple fun bonus tricks. So we're going to add a new layer on top of the color layer, and we're going to do a cool little border here. So I'm going to choose, you can use whatever color you want, I'm going to choose light blue, and layer 7 I'm going to rename border. Oops. So I'm going to show you how to use the symmetry tool. So let's go up to our wrench, and under canvas we're going to turn on the guides, and it's going to be those grids that we had earlier, but we're going to go into edit drawing guide, and there are 4 options here. Symmetry is the last one, so I'm going to choose symmetry. And then we're going to turn on rotational symmetry in the bottom right and choose this 3rd option here of quadrant. So make sure your settings look like mine with symmetry. Assisted drawing is on, rotational symmetry, and then quadrant. And if you want, you can change the color of the guides up here by sliding this color to the left and right. And then once those are done, you can hit done. Now, making sure that we're on a new layer and make sure that the layer says assisted, we're going to create some magic here. So just to show you what this is going to look like, I'm going to, whoops, let's choose our calligraphy brush, and now I'm going to draw in this top left corner, but you can see it's drawing in all of the quadrants and making it symmetrical. So whatever you draw in any quadrant is going to repeat itself rotationally around the canvas. So this is pretty fun. You might want to play around with this a little bit just because it can be kind of confusing. Like, make sure that you're not running into your lettering from one quadrant. So anyway, you can draw some really pretty swirls and just make a nice border. Now, if you wanted to, again, move your letters with the colors, you would need to select both layers, tap your arrow, and move this up. So it just looks like I need to move this up a little bit here. Okay, so that is symmetry. Now I'm going to add a brand new layer on top of my border layer here. If I were to start writing on this new layer, you can see that it's not creating that symmetry effect, and that's because this layer doesn't have assisted draw on. So I would have to tap the layer and choose drawing assist in order for the symmetry to work again, but I actually don't want that. I want this not to be drawing assist, and I'm going to add some glimmer. So let's change our color to white, so you can tap in the top left of this circle and it will snap it to white. Then let's go to our brush menu and find luminance, glimmer, and making sure I'm on my new layer 8, let's just rename it glimmer. Let's just draw over it, and you can see there are some cool little stars appearing. So my brush size is at around 45% right now. So now we're just drawing some stars here. All right. So this looks kind of neat. Now, I feel like that it's a little bit too bright, so I'm actually going to reduce the opacity of this layer. So if I open my glimmer layer, tap the N, and drag this down, you can see it's making it a little bit less of an effect. So I just want it to be sort of subtle here like this. So to turn off my this crosshair right here, I'm going to go to drawing guide and turn it off, and I'm going to have to play around with this because I know that this isn't perfect. Whoops. Let's go to my border layer and grab an eraser. I'm just going to grab calligraphy, brush pen, and then I might want to clean this up a little bit, or I'll probably end up redoing that. But anyway, and one other thing to note is even though I just turned those guides off, this layer still says assisted, which means that if I draw on this layer, oops, I was drawing with white, which is why it didn't show up. Let's change this to blue. If I draw on this layer, it's still going to do that symmetry. So if I wanted to turn that off, I would just have to tap the layer and choose drawing assist, and then it wouldn't do that anymore. Okay, so just something to check if you're wondering why symmetry is or isn't showing up. Make sure that it says assisted if you want it on, or off if you don't. All right, so there we have our last project. So we're combining clipping masks, symmetry, and this fun glimmer effect. So you would export it by going to Share, PNG, and Save Image. So just to review the projects that we created, first we started off with Don't Worry, Be Happy, and we used Alpha Lock to fill in those letters. Then we made this shadow one, which we first got rid of the Don't Worry at the top, moved things around and resized it, and then added that shadow. And then lastly, we created created this cool clipping mask with the border of symmetry around it and some glimmer on top. So hopefully learning these mini projects helps you put the features of Procreate in context. It's a lot easier to understand what a clipping mask is when you can see why it's used versus just learning about it in isolation. So we really like to teach in a project-based format like this because we just think it's a lot more fun than learning the tools on their own. And then by the end of it, you have a cool project like this.
Well, okay, that was awesome. I feel like every time somebody is walking through, like every time I watch somebody else on Procreate, I learn so many more things, even though I feel like I have a like decent handle on it at this point. It's like just like little tiny tips that people do that I'm like, oh wow, I do that in like 8 steps and you just did it in 2.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to achieve like the same effect, and yeah, that's why it's so overwhelming.
But also like you can figure it out eventually on your own, but they're like, you guys just cut like a million steps out for people. So I think that that'll be really helpful. And speaking of that, I know that we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but your full course has like, you guys broke it down into projects. And can people buy just the intro stuff or just the projects, or just like, can you explain to us a little bit how the course works?
Yeah, it'd probably be easier if we can show you our screen just so we can show you like exactly what's included. So I'll go ahead and switch over to sharing my screen if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is just some information about the course. We have tons of information if you want to read through it, but I thought it would be better to just show you kind of what's inside of it. So the course is actually a bundle of a bunch of different courses. So we start with Procreate features and navigation. So if you enjoyed or learned anything from what we talked about at the beginning of this lesson, just about like the menu items and how to use them, this mini course goes through everything, like all the details, and then we move into the project packs. So each project pack here, this is like the most exciting thing. So each project pack teaches you how to create different projects so that you can learn how to use the features in context. So there are 4 sets of 4 projects right now, and as we add new ones, you'll automatically get those included, and we have some in the works. But the first one is it's right here, it's focused on creating really pretty backgrounds and fills and textures. Number 2 is about things like neon, like this neon sign one, and glitter, and all of these are created 100% digitally. The third one, you'll learn how to add depth and shadows and things. And then this fourth one, I love these. We use like realistic effects, like this watercolor is 100% digital. And then the other cool thing that we added is how to create some GIFs or animations in Procreate. So that these are the 9 projects that you'll learn, and these GIFs is kind of like a recent update that Procreate introduced, and we just loved figuring out how to do all of these, so you'll also get this included. But we do also include the features and navigation in case you are brand new. Oh, one other little bonus that you get too is how to create mockups and cut files in Procreate. So I know a lot of people use Procreate or want to use it for if you have like an Etsy shop and you want to cut things out of vinyl, or you just want to learn how to make mockups of the products that you sell. That goes into all the details of how to do that with 5 projects in that little set.
So the way it's set up, you can get, if you're just interested in, for instance, learning the glow letters and chalkboards, that's in Project Pack 2. You could just get Project Pack 2 by itself, or you can get the entire thing as a bundle, which includes all of the projects, the intro part, the bonuses, and future updates if we add any more project packs to it.
So smart to have it broken down into pieces, like into projects like that. That makes so much sense. It's like so much less overwhelming. And like you said, if someone wants to just learn how to like make chalk effects, they can just get that one. So cool. I love it. So I'm going to link to your course down below, and people will be able to find it that way for sure. So where else can people find you to go and learn more about this?
Yes, Instagram, of course. We also have a YouTube channel, and then we have a Facebook group, the Loveleigh Loops calligraphy community, that you can join and share your work in our Facebook group.
Oh, and one other thing, if you guys are watching this video, you guys can get a discount that we made just for Becca. So the code is happy10, and you can get 10% off the full course.
Amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. I have to go through the one. Do you guys say GIF, but I always said GIF. And I feel like I just want to be able to make those, to make like funny ones to put in my emails and on my Instagram stories and stuff.
Yeah, once you figure it out, it's actually easier than it seems. But they look really complicated, and yeah, they're just so much fun to play around with too.
Totally. Cool. Well, like I said, I'll link to all of that stuff below and everybody can go and check you guys out. But thank you so much for coming on here and doing another tutorial for us. I know it'll be helpful for people and reduce the overwhelm of Procreate.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. I'll talk to you guys later.